Have fun.
When I was little, my Savta taught me that silence was a woman's best garment. But I have to admit, I never really took her advice to heart.
When you mix fuel, metal oxide, and metal powder in just the right way, it burns at 2,000 degrees Celsius. Hot enough to cut through nearly any barrier known to man. Throw some C4 into the mix, and you've got one hell of a combination.
Hi everyone, I'm Jen. We are back. It's the last panel of the day. I'm super stoked to be here. I'm product manager on Rainbow Six Siege, and I'm very glad to be here today for the Tech Q&A panel. And I am joined by my fellow panelists. We have Alex, who is a physics programmer. We have LP, who is our audio director, and we have Jalal, who is our technical architect. And this time around, I got it. I'm very proud of myself. So yeah, today we will be doing a tech Q&A. So the first part, we're going to talk a little bit about what you guys do, and then after that, we'll answer some questions from the crowd. So basically, why these three wonderful guys are here. Alex has worked a lot on procedural destruction, so that's what he's bringing to the table today. LP, the sound propagation. It's a topic that I love, so I'm really excited to talk about it. And Jalal is here to talk about anti-cheat, as well as other online improvements and enhancements that we've done and that we're still doing, because there's always something to improve, so yes. Jalal is the man for that. So today, yeah, we're talking about these three technologies that really impacted Siege. It improved the gameplay experience and the player's experience overall, so it's kind of what unites all of us with this tech Q&A. And at the core of all technologies that we push in Siege, it's pretty much always that, like improving the gameplay experience. So let's get started, first of all, with procedural destruction. We wanted to kick it off with a short video that's talking about like our first vision for destruction. It was kind of like a prototype to prove how far we could take it. So let's check it out, and then we'll talk about it. So this video was intended for internal use only, and we're sharing it today. What was it for exactly, Alex?
Yes, this is actually the first tech demo we did to showcase the newly developed Real Blast destruction technology. In this video, we can see what we had at that time for the procedural destruction. We have procedural glass, procedural floors, and walls. Also, we have a bunch of like destructible props and lots of particles effects. And this tech demo was done mainly to reassure ourselves that it was doable. Like with the tech and the current technologies that we had, we could do something like that. And in this demo, we there was no limitation. We kind of the goal was to make everything
like this showcase.
Yeah,
it was
showcase.
kind of a proof of concept.
Yeah, how much far we could go, and so there was no limit. We could break everything. Even brick walls were breakable at that time. The floors were breakable. Like everything was breakable. So. And right after that, it's actually this was done before the conception phase. So after that, we started.
That's kind of the start of the game in a way, right? It's one of the
exactly.
main core techs that support the gameplay, right?
Yeah. So right after that, we had to create. I would say gameplay prototype using this tech. And it's where everything started, actually. Yeah.
And we were discussing about it the other day, and you're telling me that it actually took a long time to do this proof of concept, and actually making it playable, like in gameplay with 60 FPS. It was like a long process for the team.
Yes.
So you guys created a tool for it. Can you talk a little bit about the DAB tool?
Yes, an interesting tool that we had to develop because. Creating that, the specific demo was very difficult in terms of creating the assets. So that's why we created the DAB tool, meaning the Destructible Architecture Building tool. And with this tool, the designer can basically just lay the layout of the walls, and then by selecting them, you can choose whether they're going to be fully destructible or only line-of-sight walls, as we call them.
So if you can navigate through them or not.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all the designer who's going to decide about what's breachable and what's not. And so you can see it's very easy to place doors and change the layout of the maps. And the cool part of that tool is that everything is fully breakable right from the start. So it's very easy for the level designers to iterate on the map layout.
So they can play test everything they create really quickly, basically.
They don't have to worry about the technical aspects of creating destructible procedural assets. Yes.
And it really does bring a lot to the game, right? Like a lot of the replayability is based on that. It's a huge factor that players can modify every time.
Yeah. The procedural destruction is really at the center of the game because with that tech you can basically break any part of the wall with any size of destruction is possible.
Yeah, based on where you're standing, the angle, the caliber of the gun.
So there's nothing that is predetermined in terms of the result. So
it's always recalculating. And another thing that's recalculating at the same time as destruction is sound propagation. So we're going to kick it off with a quick video that kind of showcases sound propagation, and then we're going to talk about it. It's kind of showing like how the waves of sound work into our game. So let's check it out. So LP, can you explain what is this? What are these colors? Those are not in the game usually.
No, that's our debug display to see where the propagation paths are going. We did our community corner on this, but to quickly recap it, what we're doing different on Siege is instead of having sounds go through walls and occlude them, we're recalculating their path to go around walls. But with destruction, what's really cool is that you can recreate the map of sound where you can destroy a wall and create line of sounds if you want for the player to modify what he can listen to. So that's our debug display to illustrate what's actually happening in the algorithm.
And that's something that's really important to players. Like at the first level, there's destruction. It's kind of obvious to new player. They see something breaking, they're like, wow. But the sound is kind of the second layer that you start paying attention to. And I know players it's a huge deal for them. So yeah, why is that in the game? Why not occlusion? Why not another technology?
So it's kind of an audio designer's dream to have a more realistic way that sound propagates. And we've been working on this for a couple of years. and evidently we wanted it in Siege, but we hadn't really realized how important it was to Siege until we started playing the game, until the destruction was in, until we had our maps built. Why? Because our maps are much smaller than what we usually see, so having that occlusion, obstruction, which would be going around the walls, was that more important, and as well because of bullet penetration. If you can hear somebody right through the wall, it'd be super easy to just shoot them through the wall, and then everybody would be frustrated at never knowing who shot at you. So leveling the playing field on that sense with propagation was like a huge plus and was really necessary.
And it was also something that so it was going really well on the dev team floor with sound propagation. We're like, yeah, it's working with destruction, it's wonderful. Then we released in closed alpha, and players seemed like some were for it, some were against it, mixed reception. Can you tell me about this moment where we talked about it after?
For sure. When we got the feedback from the closed alpha, a lot of people were not understanding, where the sounds were coming from. They thought it was coming from the left. No, it came from the right. And we talked about it quite a bit. And everybody on the dev team was like, "Wow, but this is really cool. So what's happening here?" And we kind of realized that it was really about communication. If we didn't speak about it, it was really hard to imagine how different this whole system would work. So as soon as we released the game, we worked on communicating it and really explaining it. And that was a big difference between the perception of the dev team versus the players in the closed alpha. I believe that once you understand it, that's where it becomes a tool, and that's where you really have fun with it.
It's actually, it brings to your gameplay. It's literally,
it's a new
like you
gameplay
said,
for sure.
it's a tool.
Yeah.
And after we were live, after the alpha and everything, those were two texts that we kind of created before, and we're still iterating all the time, of course. But then came a lot of online tech pushes, because there was a lot of things to keep working on. And one of them was the anti-cheat that was around Season 3 when it released. Jalal, well, first let's look at a short video of the moment we first enabled BattleEye. And that was quite a key moment, yeah. So what we're seeing on stream is just a streamer, and meanwhile, it's the first time ever that the BattleEye is enabled. So you're going to see a quick list of banned people running through, and it does make us quite happy. Thank you. So Jalal, maybe tell me about how it felt when you pushed the button.
Well,
how was it?
This was the first, I think, 1,000 band that we issued. Everything was around my desk, looking at, I was connected on a game, just to pretty much see the same thing as everyone would be seeing, and see the list of name, and everyone on the team was really happy and really enjoyed seeing a couple of months at work finally coming through and having this huge difference within the game.
And what did it take to get to that point? Because people were wondering, right?
Yes, well, that's the thing. When you're working on anti-cheat, you can't really communicate too much about it because you're doing security work. And when you're working on security, you can't really tell what you are protecting, what you are doing. So prior to that, it was a couple of months where we were actually improving and working on smaller solutions to actually improve our anti-cheat detection within the game. And then came the time to actually release BattleEye. Mm-hmm. And it was actually a huge difference that made in the game.
I have a first fan question actually. It's not planned, but I saw it. One person asked, how big was your smile when you pressed the button?
I think it was huge. I think, someone, I think from another office even sent me a 3D printed band hammer afterwards, and there was, I think, pictures of me sent around in the office. So.
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like an on-off switch, right? It's
yes.
It was a great moment. It was
yes.
People are not happy, and then suddenly everyone's like, woo.
Yes.
So how does it go about for other online techs?
Well, a lot of the work that we're actually doing and we're continuing to do, we did through the last year, and now we're improving on, are more incremental work where we're pretty much looking at the groundwork that needs to be done within our online infrastructure, our hit registration, other topics. And the amount of work actually needed to see a huge improvement within the game is more incremental this time than actually it's just like on-off switch when you see the difference right away. And we're trying to improve as much as possible incrementally our online components in that sense.
And we'll talk a lot more about that in depth tomorrow morning at the Year 2 panel.
Yes.
Because we have some plan that we're going to be sharing. Now let's go for the Q&A time. I am ready to have the first question on the screen, and we'll discover it together. Oh, that's totally for Jalal.
Yes.
I see something about servers. What does it mean when something is client-side versus server-side?
Okay.
So we'll get everyone on the same page.
Okay. So something that's client-side means that it's computed on the client. So the player that's playing is going to do the simulation or whatever visual effects going to be seen at a given time. It's going to be on his screen, computed locally. Something that's server-side is going to be computed on the server or simulated on the server and then shared to the other players. So usually something that's server-side is more consistent to all players actually looking at it. So but client-side usually if we move everything to server-side means that we're going to consume a lot of bandwidth. We can send all the data that's actually being visible to any player around to all the players. So we focus usually on everything that's very gameplay impacting, and this is what is actually done on the server side and then propagated around to all the clients.
That is, I get it, yeah? Clear to you guys?
Yeah. Perfect
Any
answer.
questions? We're good? What's the second question? Yes. How has destruction changed since the conception of Siege to now? So that would be for you, Alex.
Yes. I would say that it kind of we improved. Of course, we improved the performance, the speed, and also the stability of destruction, because we cannot afford the destruction not to work one time than the other. So it improved a lot in that sense. We also improve on the visuals. The looks and
yeah, we've had a few updates actually, the first time we introduced on Bartlett University, and there's another update when we did Favela, the outside shell destruction.
Yes, we're constantly improving on what we can do with the destruction system and what we can add. One thing we added on the first season was the curved surfaces. Something was new, we improved the procedural destruction to include also curved walls. Other than that, I would say also we kind of reduced the number of from what we saw in the first demo. We reduced the number of things that can break because it can let's say it because it's impacting the gameplay. So we need to make sure that we decide what's breakable and what's not.
But it's important to always stay at 60 FPS for sure and have
yes.
good gameplay experience. And I know also for a design side. Game designers, level designers, they iterated a lot with destruction, and they found that sometimes too much destruction is not necessarily the most fun for the game, because it's a lot to learn for a player. It's kind of intense. So
yeah, actually, it's difficult to manage the gameplay well-wise and the level design when everything is breakable. So that's why we had to keep with some part of the buildings that are not breakable.
So let's go to the next question. Let's see what it is. What goes into the pathing process for the patching? Sorry, thank you, for multiple platforms. So that would be more a Jalal question.
Yeah. So usually when we publish an update, PC is the easiest platform because we control all the chain until we get a patch in the hands of the player. For consoles, we have to go through a submission process when it usually goes through multiple steps that has to do with the consoles, validating the builds. And we usually have less control over the timings of those validations. So this is why usually we try as much as possible to push updates on PC first, to be more reactive, because we can be more reactive on PC and control whatever is happening to the end players with our builds.
And then once it's safe, we push to everyone.
Yeah, we push to everyone, because we can easily roll back on PC.
Yeah. So let's go to the next question that we have. I think it's about sound. Yes, I knew we would have something for you, Elsie. Can you explain how sound works when a player is running above you?
That's a really interesting one, because one thing we got to know is that currently there's no system for reproducing 3D audio. There's some of them that are starting, but most people don't necessarily have anything. Like headphones, it's just 2 speakers, or a 5.1, it's a level plane. So how do we get verticality understood? And the footstep thing is really interesting, because we're tapping into what we call psychoacoustics. Psychoacoustics is what is, you've heard this sound before, and even though it's not being actually positioned over your head in your sound reproduction system, you associate it by being over your head because you've heard that before. Now, that doesn't mean that we are only using, or that we only want to use
We're
this
just
type of...
playing tricks with your mind.
That's exactly what we're doing with the footsteps. But we've been checking out a lot of solutions. With VR coming out, a lot of people are working on algorithms that can actually trick your brain even more on any source of sound, and it's not as related as to what you've learned before, but more of how your head works and how your ears are made. So there's a lot of new tech coming out like that, and we're really looking into how we can implement that in Siege, because we know, it'd be really, really cool to be able to hear like a full 360-degree dome.
Yes. It would be. And let's take one last question. Those questions, by the way, were from like Twitter, Facebook, Reddit. So thank you for everyone that submitted questions. Last question is, why was floor destruction reduced to specific hatches as opposed to being able to destroy any floors anywhere? We kind of touched upon it, but let's get more into it.
It's an interesting question, because that's what we had at the beginning, like in the first prototypes.
Yeah, that we saw actually.
Yeah, and the main reason why we ended up with having only traps is it's because of a gameplay reason. In Siege or in Rainbow Six, there was never any jump, and we wanted to stick with that. Not letting the player be able to jump. So if you were able to destroy a floor, you could kind of deny the access of a specific room or a part of a floor, and so that's why. So that's why we still have the floors that are breakable.
Yeah, because we do have line of sight floors quite a bit. Like
most of them are line of sight floors. And also having only specific areas where we can, like the traps basically, we can control more easily the verticality of the gameplay. So it's because it would be hard also to reinforce all the floors.
Yeah, that would actually need a lot more reinforced walls and floors. That would be quite a long time. Let's just add 3 minutes to the prep phase and a lot of reinforcement. So that pretty much explains it. So thank you so much, guys, for your question, and thank you for being on this panel. So we kind of touched upon a lot of little topics. Well, it's actually big topics: destruction, sound prop, anti-cheat, and other online services, which we're going to discuss a lot more tomorrow. So those 3 kind of make Siege what it is today. So thank you guys for your work, and thank you for being there today, and thank you to everyone who watched this panel. We're super stoked to have you here, everyone online, everyone in the room. Thank you. So see you guys. Well, we still have a match, so you guys should tune in for that match, and then we'll see you tomorrow as well for the finals.